What I wanted to visit about today was Jerome Powell, our Federal Reserve Chairman, and a little bit about Lisa Cook, one of the other professionals on the Fed Open Market Committee, who has been in the news lately. And on Lisa Cook, her case is due to come up shortly about Donald Trump's efforts to remove her for the his fake justification was mortgage fraud, as he's used against AG uh, the AG of the state of New York, and rumored or threatened to use it against Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, who I'm sure you've you've heard of. And this, of course, these are just manufactured charges because Donald just wants what Donald wants, and he gets huffy when people don't just say yes, sir, or yes, your Majesty. And Lisa Cook is an immensely qualified economist, the first African American woman appointed to such a role, and her term runs for another decade or so. And all Godspeed, God bless, and hope that she prevails. And the Supreme Court, after they've destroyed all of the protections for basically every other federal agency, it appears, he said hopefully, that they may choose to treat the Fed differently, to continue to treat the Fed differently, because the Supreme Court's rationale for that is sort of manufactured too. It's because of the legacy of the First National Bank and the Second National Bank, our country's history in banking, you need independence. And the independence part is correct. However they get there is fine. It's just that they end up tripping over their own very tiny micros because they go from being strict constructionists when it suits them to originalists, not quite strict they make up different philosophies to match how they're going to lay down and disrobe for the pleasure of King Donald. And it's a terrible embarrassment. It's a complete insult to Supreme Court jurisprudence, and an insult to the American people and the rule of law and all the other things that we talk about frequently. But they're doing it. The Roberts Court, the John Roberts Court, the man that we thought was so concerned with his personal legacy and the legacy of the Supreme Court, appears to have flushed that in its entirety down the toilet, and then did that thing where you flush three more times just to make sure. Yeah, but we'll be seeing old John again, again in this new term. Excuse me. And the Supreme Court more broadly will be full of kicks and giggles this year, because as Trump starts to feel the pressure, the one thing that all of his conservative, reactionary, right-wing lunatics will be focused on is replacing Sammy Samuelito and Clarence Thomas as they're aging out, with much younger, hopefully 14-year-old Supreme Court right-wing lunatics. But that's for another day. This is appreciation for Jerome. My friends call me Jay Powell. This is a guy. This is the exact human being that you want to hold that position, considering the importance of that role to the US economy, to the international financial markets, and so many other things that we can't even cover them today. It's tremendous responsibility and power in one human being, but he has shown that through his intelligence, patience, and dignity, that he is the perfect guy for the job. So we're going to give tribute, of course, to the man that chose to put him there, right? To appoint him to the chair position. Oh no, that would be one DJT. Yeah, Jerome Powell was, distinguished Princeton undergrad with honors distinction out the yin yang. The the level of distinction I could only dream of if I actually cared about such things. And he went on to get his JD from Georgetown. And, he's that kind of guy like Obama. Of course, he's the head of the law review or the law journal, which is like the A team, B team thing. Magnificently talented, intellectual leader. And he goes off and he does his law practice thing. And then he rises up to being a partner at the Carlyle Group, right? Carlyle, which is, one of the most highly respected private equity groups in the history of the world. This world, other worlds, Elon's world. Amazing, right? David Rubenstein, the whole Carlyle legacy, just magnificent. And Powell eventually gets involved Fed, and he's respected by Republicans and Democrats alike. Earlier in his career on the Fed, he is not an economist. He's an attorney, and a highly accomplished attorney. But he's a sort of a polymath too, because if you read some of the things that he's written over the years, he is just a thinker. He is a thought leader on many areas of law and economics that it's really, you're just a very impressive human being. So this is an appreciation. This is a thank you, sir, for your service. Right. And doubly so that you have to show up for a tremendously consequential and demanding job, and you've got to babysit some person like DJT. Right? And what I will commend for your review, I posted, of course, the chair's clip from which is available on the Fed YouTube channel and otherwise about his statement, which is Jay Powell speaking alone to the camera over the weekend, and saying dispassionately that I'm doing my job, and I was just told that the Department of Justice is suing me for whatever made up, trumped up, ding, hashtag charges. And all I'm doing is doing my job, which is taking into account my dual mandate of interest rates and labor market stability. And I don't do politics. That's not what the Fed chair does, right? So I'm doing my job. I'm going to keep doing my job. I'm going to do it until the end of my term, and I ain't going anywhere. Donald is essentially what he said. But he had to say it. He had to put it out there because, unlike the president, Powell feels a responsibility to, oh, I don't know, global financial markets to not F everything up rolling into the weekend, because we're not the only market. There are Asian markets that open up ahead of us. There are markets in Australia and other places. I'll get that wrong, but that follow us. And California is after New York. So, um, how about that for some major economic theory? Uh, Time zones, yeah, undefeated, great, yeah, great concept. So there's your boy. He goes on the interwebs and puts out his statement over the weekend. But what I republished this morning or noon or morning was DJT with his the gentleman I refer to as his lapdog, which is and I don't use this characterization lightly, but Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott, or Senator Uncle Tom Tim Scott, which is a callback to an essay that I did in the summer, which you're welcome to find it in my, maybe I'll repost it if I'm feeling spicy, in my Substack feed and on YouTube, which is called the Tom Tom Club. And the two Toms in question there were Clarence Thomas and Tim Scott. So there's Senator Tim Scott essentially being Donald Trump's butler, right? That's not, I hope that's not a racially charged assertion, but we're in a racially charged environment. So maybe allow me a little bit of latitude. How's that? Give me grace, even if my statement does not demand that you give me any grace. I'm just asking. I'm just a guy, you know. I ain't I ain't that smart. I'm hopelessly uh, Caucasianally challenged. I'm, as I repeatedly say, white as Christmas. What we saw there, and I'll repost that if you didn't see it, because it's so incredibly delightful. And this one short clip tells you so much about both. Nothing about. We won't talk about Tim Tom any longer. We'll put him to the side where he belongs. He's over fawning and saying, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Whatever you say, you are the smartest." Scott actually had a rejoinder about Trump was saying how far Jay Powell was over budget on the renovations to the Fed. And I think that Trump said what he normally says is you're $7 trillion over budget. And Scott just came back in and said, oh, I think it's 7.2 trillion. Some stupid people, silly people, not stupid, silly people. Clarence, Clarence and Tim, though, just as a rejoinder, one of the underlying premises of this deep think piece that I did, the Tom Tom Club, is that these guys are so in a world filled with racism. Here are two African American gentlemen who are fighting as hard as they can against affirmative action and any program, DEI or otherwise, that would not advantage people because of their diverse backgrounds, but to level the playing field. Voting rights, I don't know, sort of important right now, as the Supreme Court is going to take a hatchet to the remaining part of the Voting Rights Act. Right? That you've got these two guys in, the Supreme Court and the U.S. Senate, right? Clarence and Tim, railing against the evils of affirmative action, and they're just, but at the same time they're proud about their heritage,
except I find it funny that not this matters, but they didn't both marry outside of the faith. They married way outside of the faith. Way, yeah, Ginny Thomas? Yeah. Whoa. Just if you want to see what the right wing does to bend the mind, look into Ginny Thomas a little bit. I'm not casting, I don't know the lady, but I've, uh, I've been around and paying attention long enough that I know enough to be frightened to death. Dun, dun, dun. Right? So here we are. DJT in, let's call it middle June of 2025. He goes to visit the construction project at the Fed and he grandstands. And Powell, like, you know, because he knows how the way that the game is played, he's kind of standing off, let's see, facing, he's on to Trump's stage left. And Trump's up front talking to Tim and talking to the cameras and the reporters, saying, "Yeah, well, we just came to see the project. It's very." And Trump started off he was okay. He started talking about, well, a complex project. They're building, what are you saying, basements where there weren't basements before, and it's a complicated project. But then he started taking the digs, and he was like, "Yeah, well, the $3 billion is now $3.5 billion, and it's kind of getting out of control." And one of the reporters asks her, "But aren't you more concerned about interest rates?" And of course, that's the bell ringing in the back of Trump's brain, is that if he can force, however artificially, interest rates down, then what that does, and you can watch for this ahead of the midterm elections, because that when he appoints the new chair, he'll be pressing to get a strategic suppression of interest rates in order to give the equity markets a bounce, and that works. It's a sugar high. It's cotton candy instead of like a real food, but it'll work. And then, there are various levers that Trump can pull going into the midterm election. He could do three things. He could do sugar high into the market, make comments about the tariffs like, well, I'm thinking I don't even know how to spell tariff anymore. It wasn't that great an idea. And tell Tom Homan and Christy freaking Nome and all of those other idiots to holster their weapons that they don't know how to use and stand down through, if you strategically, he's not doing anything genuinely. He's not doing anything for the benefit of the American people or the country, but he will want to win the midterm election to stay in power, because otherwise there will be investigations out the congressional yin yang correctly, justifiably. Right? So he could do that. And he got them to stand down, which allows the U.S. to have a better World Cup experience. And everybody's feeling joyous as midterms come around and said, you know what? Trump wasn't that bad. Look at the stock market. All-time high. I mean, it's near all-time highs now, but pay attention to gold, which is at an all-time high. And what that is fear, right? That's fear in the bonds, right? In fixed income, about what might happen with a Nazi takeover of a government. That's another story for them. So back to this meeting with Jerome Powell, right? Jay Powell, to his friends. Trump beckons him from the waiting in the wings. Hey, Chair Powell, come on up. So here's this is chairman of the Fed. You know who this is. and he's starting, he has a plan to sort of, throw a Singapore sling on Chair Powell, a booby trap, right? Said, yeah, yeah, well, the project, yeah, but you're like however many $1 billion over budget. We should probably investigate this. And Powell's just like, well, I, uh, I hadn't heard that, sir. I'll stay respectful, not an alarm. He's a lawyer by training. He's a he knows how to control himself at times of stress and confrontation. Because if you don't, then you lose, right? So Trump is going into some detail about how the project is essentially getting away from Powell, like he's a bad manager. Of course, coming out of the Trump administration, except for the tribute that we give Trump about the Project Warp Speed getting the vaccine to market, what happened, the mismanagement in the COVID era caused the inflation spike that was sustained for a longer period of time than economists thought. That's why we still are fighting with inflation today. But in its genesis, that was COVID, and that was amped by Trump's initial mismanagement of the COVID issues, and everybody else is screaming like babies about masks. And I mean, school closures legitimately an issue for psychological health of children, and I know from uh, experience that younger children that were sequestered during that period of time, it wasn't fun. They still had school shootings. It was bad. Couldn't see their friends. You're supposed to be at that age while all these kids were on COVID lockdown. I mean, think about what you were doing in your middle school years. I mean, my middle school years were on the cusp of 60s and 70s. So what I was doing was probably listening to Jimi Hendrix and running around trying to find a friend with an older sister so I could find out how to roll a joint properly or something like that. I mean, at that you're supposed to be at that age trying to figure out how to have sex with people and then repeat it whether you're good at it or not. And that's what you're supposed to be doing at that time. Okay, so how did I get on consensual sex with underage people with other underage people? I'm not kidding. No, Jeffrey Epstein's were harmed in this episode, but of course he'll be featuring prominently because, as you've learned, he's back. Jeffrey's back. He was just visiting his mom and dad in Palm Beach. They're permanent residents now, and he was presumed to be, but he's back and he's with the help of Donald Trump and Trump's family and their newfound wealth in the crypto world. They're looking to buy some pro sports franchises, and that story will go on these Substack feeds for some time because it's way too delightful, and it's important that we remind people frequently that Epstein still out there, not resolved, and there are a lot of rich and powerful people that really have a beating coming to them, a deserved beating. I mean, in a colloquial way, they need to be punished. They need to be called out, exposed, embarrassed, and then embarrassed again. Get all the facts out there, flood the facts out there, sensitive to, of course, the victims. But the victims at this point, what they are saying is that Pamela Joe Bondi is effing them because about 10% of the documents that were supposed to be released by law have been released. So that old school math, if 10 have been released, that probably means that, what does that mean? That there's 25? No, there's more, right? 10, 100, 90, carry the 90% of the Epstein file, that information is still yet to be released. And the victims now are angry and they're going to be out there naming names and talking about it in very short order. And to the extent that they are pleased with that, I am pleased for them because there are plenty of people that need to be hammered. So, um, so my final trip back to to Chair Powell and Trump on the stage, and he says, "Well, you're you're over budget by 750 million, whatever fake amount he was making up in his brain." And Powell, because he's the lawyer, the only lawyer there, right? Not the only one, obviously, they're everywhere, like cockroaches, right? But Powell grabs the piece of paper that Trump had pulled out of his vest pocket, and he's like, "Oh, is this from us? Meaning, is this a Fed? Meaning, it ain't fake news. Is this like actual info?" Inconclusive, but takes his glasses. Powell, he's 10 years, 11 years older than I am, right? So he's going to be 73, I think, this month, next month. He's a wizened, smart dude. He pulls this paper out. He's looking at it. He said, and Trump's right there, cameras, press, bloviating, just letting the bullshit flow, just lies on lies, bullshit, innuendo, fake news, hashtag scream, get my good side, all the regular apprentice bullshit, right? And Powell's just reading this thing and he's like, "Well, sir, yeah, that figure is based on, I just lost the name of the building, but we'll call it the McCormick Building." That's not right. It'd be McMillan Building, or one of the buildings in the Fed complex. You're including that in these figures. And he's like, "Well, yeah, but it's part of the construction project." He said, "Well, sir, it's not. No, it's the whole project." And he's talking smack left and right. He said, "Well, yeah, sir, that building was completed like 5 years ago." So what Trump was doing to try to do to stick it to Powell on camera in front of reporters was he was including the construction costs of a since completed building within the complex in order to inflate the costs. Estimated cost is it's over budget. Yeah, right? Well, the cost of the Eiffel Tower would be over budget if you included the cost of the L'Arc de Triomphe or something, right? Yeah. Okay. That's math. Again, undefeated. So, and, and you can see Trump knows he starts to, Trump knows how to blow through these things because he's a bullshit artist, not a rookie, not a novice, not a beginner. He is a bullshit artist. Donald J. Trump has been for 40 plus years. He's been polishing his skill. Apprentice certainly helped him to that end. Man, it's cold out here. So, and he knows that it's coming. He knows that it's falling apart. So he's just grabbing for straws in the end of it. And if you look at Powell, he's not, Powell is not high fiving himself. He's not giving it the, what was that great scene on Ace Ventura, Pet Detective? He wasn't Jim Carrey, so like I got you, I got you. No, it's the lawyer. This is the sober technician, the assassin. I had the facts. I'm way the F smarter than you are. He didn't say, Powell did not say. But watching, I mean, looking at his demeanor, you know it. Knowing Donald Trump, half of the universe is smarter than he is. He's just more cunning, like like a rabid fox, right? Uh, Tim Tim Scott is like he's whatever, you know. He's window dressing over on that side, trying to support the president, but he knows they're fucked, right? I mean, everybody knows at that point. The reporters know it, and so Trump's just ready to tap out and go home. What does that mean, though? What does that leave Trump with? The feeling of being called out. I mean, we've seen Trump be called, he's been called out before by people of color. Good Lord, black and brown people, how hard that is for him to handle being wrong, being proven wrong by a minority person, right? Trump. Grievance, explosion of grievance when that happens because, you know, I'm a privileged white guy. That shit doesn't, that's not supposed to happen. I mean, uh, Kamala Harris in the debate, right? Just, you know, smoked him. What I want to see as a selfish Commonwealth of Massachusetts dweller, I want, if I could, please, how about, how about Michelle Wu, our delightful Boston mayor, debating DJT in the grave? No, I don't mean that in, you know, I don't want any harm to come to, well, I won't say not anyone, but to DJT until it's time for him to go, until his number comes up. But let Michelle take a few shots before he goes. As the light goes down in northern Massachusetts, and the dog will want to sojourn or whatever dogs do prior to his din and squeeze out a little bit of whatever Donald Trump was selling on that stage in Washington D.C. in the middle of June of 2025. The same bullshit or dog shit, whatever. We don't discriminate here on the pod. It I will, if you didn't see it, and it's not long like listening to me talk. It's YouTube clip. I think the version of the press conference that you'll see me post or repost, I think it was an AP, so trustworthy source, wasn't AI, wasn't overdubbed, wasn't fake news. It was delightful. It was heartwarming. It was funny as an MF because to see Trump walk into it thinking that he's setting up a guy. Powell is so far out of his league, is just so above his pay grade intellectually. I mean, not even, it's not fair, but we're not playing fair. We're not anymore, or not at least until, yeah, till we win. So, wishing you all the best, and my mouth is starting to freeze, so it's probably a good time to go in and attack the dog. And we will be back with you at some point tomorrow. I will once I get this video squared away and Substack likes it, then I will either proceeding attached to or following this will be that YouTube AP clip of the Powell and Trump meeting from middle of June this past year. So and enjoy it. If you haven't seen Jay Powell's brief press conference from the weekend, this all matters. This matters. I don't want to, no hyperbole, right? No hair on fire. You know, at my age, I don't have enough. Well, not a lot of hair, but I wouldn't want to light it on fire. Right? That this is so important because I expected this morning for the equity markets to have a little bit more indigestion than they showed during the day today. I woke up early, of course, and looked at the Asian markets, right, as they came across. Um, and I don't remember what I saw in the European markets because I was focused on some other things. In Europe, it could have been a bank holiday because they got a bunch of them. I don't even know. But in any case, there wasn't alarm and despondency. Alarm and despondency that often was captured in the VIX is not. The VIX is much less. Back when I, did more what you would, in the old days, what you would call day trading, right? The VIX was a very helpful tool to identify times of particular market volatility, right? When the VIX was 34, whatever it was, right? And it's like the VIX is medicated now. And I believe, as I'm a market participant, but I'm not an economist, nor am I a market strategist, whatever those guys are called. But you look probably more to the correlations between what's left of the VIX, the price of gold, silver, which was funny because it had up, 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 down, up, copper, huge right now. Some of the other metals are affected by they're kind of swept up in the tailing or the leading edge of the pressure, the rare earth metal. That stuff is sometimes all bunched together, and copper has so many industrial applications. But old school industrial applications. I mean, copper in the roofs and in as a building material, but then in different metals with different properties of conductivity. And then in this new era, we're in these rare earth minerals that lead Donald Trump to threaten Greenland and Denmark, which is just another on the long list of can you fucking believe this guy? So say that more than once a day. Yeah. Pleasure. Restack if you care to, or even if you don't. And subscribe, tell a friend, share, do something nice or mean, comment nice or mean. I'm a bleeding heart. I'm not, but whatever you want. Put it in, keep it clean because I don't, you don't want to make me cry, right? That would be sad. That would be me. And I'm so very sensitive. So, pleasure and thank you. And tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Thank you.